Crash Bandicoot was searching for power crystals through the rooftops of an Arabian town. When he went around a corner, he bumped into a Genie lab assistant, a henchman of Dr. Neocortex, sitting on a magic carpet. Suddenly, he was spinning above the ground in blue and orange swirls, and a clay jar appeared underneath him with a lid right above him. That was when he was sucked into the jar feet first, stretching him until the lid was dropped perfectly on top. The lid sealed itself, secured with a magic spell from the Genie lab assistant. Three hours later, back in the Time Twister, Crash's sister Coco and Aku Aku were starting to get worried about how long Crash had been gone for. Coco decided to call for backup, contacting Crash's best friend Spyro the Dragon. Spyro arrived 15 minutes later and asked what happened. Coco told him that Crash had been gone for too long and she was worried he had been captured by Cortex and his henchmen. Coco suggested that Spyro try search for him in a time portal opened by the 7th button in Chamber 2. So off he went through the portal to find Crash. Spyro arrived in the Arabian town, and on the ground in front of him was the clay jar. Curious, he picked it up and examined it. He tried to lift the lid, but it was stuck. As he withdrew his paw, he noticed it was dusty. So he rubbed at the jar, trying to dust it off. Suddenly, it began to shake, surprising Spyro so much that he almost dropped it. It shook for 10 seconds and then stopped. With a pop and a clatter, the lid popped off, letting out a big puff of blue smoke into the air. It began to spin quickly like a tornado, which slowly began to lower to the ground. As it did, it revealed red toe-tipped shoes, blue puffy pants, and a furry orange body wearing a blue vest. It could only mean one thing. It was Crash coming out of the jar. But he wasn't his usual self. He was wearing something completely different. He had gold cuffs on his wrists and was wearing a red turban with a blue jewel and a blue feather attached. He had transformed into a genie. He yawned and stretched from the magical deep sleep he had inside the jar, turned and saw Spyro standing in front of him with a shocked expression on his face. Crash jumped with surprise and asked Spyro how he managed to find the jar. Spyro told him that Coco and Aku Aku were getting worried and thought he had been captured by Cortex. Crash realized he was wearing a genie outfit and asked Spyro if he knew why he was dressed like this. Spyro guessed that Crash was a real genie now, and he had the ability to grant his master 3 wishes. Crash asked Spyro if he rubbed the jar, and Spyro revealed it to be him, so therefore he was Crash's master. Spyro asked for the following 3 wishes. Number 1. A purple and gold tuxedo and top hat for his next performance in the Dragon Worlds. Number 2. A suit of armor for battling any new threat. Number 3. A nice cold drink of Wumpa juice, because this town is in a desert. With Spyro's 3 wishes granted, the jar began to shake again, and Crash's cuffs disappeared. With a pop, his outfit turned back to normal, red sneakers and blue board shorts. Crash thanked Spyro for freeing him and accepted his guidance through the rooftops to find the crystals and safely return to 1998. Coco and Aku Aku were pacing around the time twister when a time portal in Chamber 2 opened, and out tumbled Spyro and Crash with the crystals. Coco ran to her big brother and hugged him so tight his ribs nearly cracked. She cried to Crash that she was so worried and thought she'd never see him again. Crash begged her not to worry. No matter what happens, he'll always be there for her. After a big reunion, Spyro announced he had to go since his performance would be starting in 2 hours in the Dragon Worlds. He waved goodbye to Crash, Coco and Aku Aku and disappeared through a dimensional rift. Crash told his sister and Aku Aku what had happened, and Coco was speechless. She then said they should be more careful of what they might encounter on their next adventures. After Crash's Genie adventure, they resumed their search for the remaining crystals before confronting Dr. Cortex and the Great Uka Uka.